I was at a family get-together when my mom asked, "Are you looking forward to turning 23?" My entire body tensed up. You see, every generation in my family, someone dies on their 23rd birthday. First, it was my great-grandfather, then my grandmother's sister, then my mom's cousin. I'm not superstitious, but no one had a good explanation for it. Fast forward 3 months later, and I was walking to work when a car jumped the curb right where I'd been standing seconds before. That night at 2 a.m., I couldn't sleep and Googled my family history and found 7 deaths that all happened at age 23. I went to visit my great-aunt Helen, the only one still alive who remembered the older ones. But the second I mentioned the deaths, her face froze. "Why are you digging into this?" she asked, not looking at me. I told her my birthday was coming up and she finally turned around, her face pale. "They all died between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the afternoon," she whispered. "We stopped having birthday parties because of it." She wouldn't say anything else. And when the day finally came, I told everyone I wanted to be alone and deadbolted the door. The morning of my 23rd birthday, I sat on my couch watching the clock. 10 o'clock passed, then noon. At 2:30, I was actually starting to relax, thinking maybe I was being ridiculous. At 2:47, someone knocked on my door. I figured it was UPS with a package, so I looked through the peephole. "Who is it?" I called through the door. "I'm looking for Carolyn," he said, and his voice was flat, emotionless. "Wrong apartment," I said. "There's no Carolyn here." I started to move away from the door, but he knocked again harder. "Please, I know she's in there. I need to speak with Carolyn." My hands were sweating as I put the chain on and opened the door just a crack. The moment he saw me, his jaw dropped. "Your eyes," he said, stepping closer. "You have Caroline's eyes." His right hand was in his coat pocket, and I could see the outline through the fabric. "You're going to tell me where Caroline is," he said, and I slammed the door so hard the wall shook. Boom, boom, boom. He started slamming his fist against the door. "I know you're in there. I can wait. You have to come out eventually." I called 911, barely able to hold my phone steady, and told him someone was trying to break in. Another slam and the chain lock ripped partially out of the frame. Screws clattering to the floor. The pounding continued as I talked to the dispatcher. But the second we both heard sirens approaching, it stopped. Complete silence. The cops found nothing. No fingerprints on the door, and none of my neighbors saw anyone in the hallway. They looked at me like I was having a breakdown. I spent the rest of my birthday in that barricaded apartment, jumping at every sound, but nothing else happened. I survived. Up until the day of my sister's 23rd birthday, I actually thought I'd broken whatever sick pattern this was. I stopped taking medication after that, thinking it was why I'd been so paranoid over nothing. When me and my sister were planning her birthday party, I told her about my experience, and we laughed about how crazy I'd been. I was in a meeting when my mom called. I finally stepped out to answer, and she was sobbing so hard I couldn't understand her. "Mom, can you hear me? Your sister," she collapsed at work. Turns out she had a brain aneurysm. They pronounced her dead at 3:23 p.m. on her 23rd birthday. At the funeral, none of my relatives would look me in the eye. My aunt pulled me aside and said my sister had mentioned getting weird emails the week before. Someone asking about someone named Caroline, but she thought it was spam and deleted them. I instantly knew that it was supposed to be me. Fast forward a year later to her 24th birthday. I was alone at the cemetery at 3:23 p.m. when I heard footsteps behind me. "You're the one who survived," the woman said. She knew about the man at my door, knew about Carolyn, knew everything. And when she finally explained what was going on, everything clicked. She pulled out an old photo from her pocket and handed it to me. And there was my mom, younger with darker hair, standing next to this woman. On the back, someone had written Caroline and Luna, 1999, in faded blue ink. My legs felt weak as she started explaining that Caroline was my mom's real name before she changed it 24 years ago. She'd been running from someone dangerous, someone who wanted her dead for what she did to him. The curse wasn't some family mystery or bad luck. It was a man who'd been hunting our family for decades. He was killing us at 23 because that's the exact age my mom was when she ran away and started her new life. My stomach turned as the pieces fell into place. My sister dying for something that happened before we were even born. The woman introduced herself as Luna Carver, said she was my mom's best friend back then, the one who helped her disappear. She helped create all the fake documents, found her a new town to live in, taught her how to become someone else completely. Luna pointed to the graves around us and said the man at my door on my birthday was probably Seth Robertson. He was a private investigator. The real threat paid to track down family members who might lead back to Caroline. She'd been watching our family for years, trying to protect us without revealing herself or bringing more attention to us. She showed me photos on her phone of a man in his 40s with gray hair outside my apartment building. "That was Seth," she said, "and he'd been following me for weeks before my birthday, learning my schedule." I left the cemetery right then and drove straight to my mom's house, my hands shaking so bad I could barely grip the wheel. The whole drive, I kept thinking about my sister, how she died for nothing, for someone else's past. When I got there and knocked on the door, Mom opened it and saw my face and just knew. I held up the photo Luna gave me and watched her face go completely white. "Where did she get that?" she whispered, and I pushed past her into the house. I told her I knew about Caroline, knew about everything, and she started crying, begging me to let it stay buried. She kept saying it was better if I didn't know. That knowing would only make things worse for everyone, but I wasn't leaving without answers. Not after my sister died because of her secrets. Mom finally sat down at the kitchen table and told me she testified against a very dangerous man when she was 23. She was the only witness brave enough to come forward after he killed 3 people, including her roommate. Her testimony sent him to prison for what was supposed to be life, and he swore in the courtroom he'd kill her. Not just her, but any children she ever had, and he'd wait until they were 23, the same age she was when she betrayed him. When I asked his name, she shook her head and grabbed a piece of paper from the drawer. She wrote something down with a shaking hand, showed it to me for 2 seconds, then burned it over the sink. She said speaking his name out loud might somehow bring him closer, like he had people listening everywhere. She thought changing her name and moving across the country would be enough to keep us safe from him. She'd been so careful for so many years, never posting photos online, never joining social media, always paying cash. But somehow they found us anyway, and now my sister was dead because of it. I suddenly understood why Great Aunt Helen had been so scared when I asked about the family deaths. She knew Mom's real identity, knew about Caroline, and that made her a target too. All those relatives who died at 23. They were the ones who knew the truth about where Caroline went. Someone had been systematically eliminating anyone who could reveal Mom's new identity and location over the years. Luna came to the house an hour later with a folder full of newspaper clippings about the original trial. The headlines were from 1999, talking about a brutal triple murder and the brave young woman who testified. The man my mom testified against had been convicted of multiple murders, but got out on a technicality after 15 years. Some evidence had been mishandled, and his expensive lawyers found a way to get the whole thing thrown out. He walked out of prison 5 years ago with his fortune intact and started his revenge plan immediately. Luna explained he'd been using his wealth to hire people like Seth Robertson to track down everyone connected to the trial. They'd find family members, follow them, learn about their children, and wait for the perfect moment to strike. The deaths in our family weren't coincidences or accidents. They were targeted hits made to look natural. The car that jumped the curb when I was walking to work. The brain aneurysm that killed my sister. All of it was planned. Mom broke down completely and admitted she'd been getting threatening messages from months before my sister died. Anonymous emails with old photos of her as Caroline. Text messages from random numbers saying they knew where she lived. She thought if she ignored them and didn't engage, they'd give up and move on to someone else. She never imagined they'd go after us kids, thought the threats were just to scare her into running again. But she was wrong. And now my sister was dead and I was supposed to be dead, too. My whole body was shaking as I stood there in Mom's kitchen looking at her crying at the table. I wanted to scream at her for keeping this secret, for not warning us, for letting my sister walk around, not knowing she was in danger. My fists were clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. Luna must have seen how mad I was because she stepped between us and put her hand on my shoulder. She told me that warning us might have made things worse, that these people watch for any sign their targets know about them. Mom had gone to a security expert years ago who told her the best thing was to act normal. Never let on she knew about the threats. The expert said if she told us kids, we might panic or do something that would tip them off and make them strike faster. I pushed past Luna and grabbed Mom's laptop from the counter. My fingers flew across the keyboard as I logged into my sister's Facebook account using the password she'd given me years ago. Luna leaned over my shoulder as I scrolled through her messages from the weeks before she died. There it was in her message requests. Someone named Marcus Henderson, saying he was researching our family tree for a genealogy project. My sister had replied to him 3 weeks before her birthday, sending him photos of our family reunions and telling him about where we lived and worked. The profile picture was some random old man, but Luna said it was probably Seth Robertson using a fake account. She pulled out her own laptop and started showing me website after website where our information was just sitting there for anyone to buy. Property records showed Mom's address and how much she paid for the house. Voter registration had our full names and birthdays. Those stupid people finder sites had our phone numbers and email addresses and even listed our relatives. Every time we updated our LinkedIn profiles or posted on Instagram, we were basically drawing them a map straight to us. Luna opened another folder on her computer, and my stomach dropped. She had medical reports from 3 other families connected to the original trial. Families where young people died from sudden brain bleeding or organ failure. The symptoms matched what happened to my sister perfectly. There was this drug that could trigger bleeding in the brain if you had certain genes, and it broke down in the body so fast that normal toxicology tests wouldn't find it unless you knew exactly what to look for. My hands were shaking as I read about a girl in Ohio who collapsed at her job just like my sister. Another one in Texas who died during her birthday dinner. Luna had been tracking these deaths for years, building evidence that they weren't natural. We drove to the police station that afternoon with a box full of Luna's files and printouts. The detective listened to us for about 10 minutes before holding up his hand. He said without concrete proof of murder, without the actual drug in someone's system or video of someone poisoning them, there was nothing he could do. These were all just coincidences as far as the law was concerned. He suggested we hire private security if we were truly concerned and maybe consider relocating. Mom slammed her hand on his desk and declared she wasn't fleeing anymore. She'd been on the run for 20 years, changing her name, never lingering in one spot too long, until she met my dad and chose to attempt a normal life. She was exhausted from the constant fear. Every knock at the door, every car idling too slowly outside. But even as she spoke, I noticed her hands trembling and her eyes swollen from all the crying since my sister's death. Luna made a quick call from the parking lot, and 20 minutes later, we were huddled in a nearby coffee shop with Samuel Gates. He was an older man in a sharp suit, an expert in stalking cases and witness protection matters. He jotted down notes as we shared our story, then promised to file for restraining orders immediately. But he was upfront. Those orders were little more than paper if the target was hell-bent on murder disguised as accidents. A court ruling wouldn't deter them. He urged us to log everything, save every email and text, note every odd encounter. That night my phone buzzed from a blocked number. I nearly ignored it, but instinct made me answer. Silence at first, just heavy breathing. Then a man's voice uttered 2 words before the line went dead. Caroline's daughter. Ice flooded my veins. They knew precisely who I was now. The next morning, a van arrived, and 2 men began mounting cameras at every angle of Mom's house. We swapped out all the locks for unpickable heavy-duty ones. The security firm added sensors to every window and door, set to alert us at the slightest breach. Yet despite it all, the sensation of being watched lingered. Any slowing car spiked my pulse. Every dog walker might be scouting. Every delivery person could be a spy in uniform. Samuel rang a week later with grim updates. Probing the financial angles, he'd uncovered that the man after us was funneling payments via cryptocurrency to hires like Seth Robertson. The funds hopped through endless digital wallets and exchanges, utterly untraceable. Prison had taught him well. He'd mastered evasion. No subpoenaable bank statements, no tangible trail. The transactions could originate from anywhere globally, destined for any Bitcoin holder. 3 days on, Mom summoned me over, saying she had something crucial to reveal. In her bedroom closet, she shoved aside a heap of old sweaters to expose a hidden safe I'd never spotted. Her fingers quivered as she punched in the code and withdrew bundles of cash, rubber-banded tight, around $30,000 in all. She'd squirreled it away over 15 years. $20 skimmed from groceries, $50 from online sales. Bracing for the moment escape became essential again. She thrust the stacks at me, insisting I vanish with it all before they targeted me next. But I slid them back, refusing to abandon her to this alone. Luna arrived the following morning with 3 bankers' boxes hauled from a storage unit across town. She fanned photos across Mom's dining table, and nausea hit me hard. There was Seth Robertson at the grocery store just 2 blocks away, 3 weeks before my sister's passing. Another captured him at the coffee shop she hit every morning pre-shift. Luna had tailed him for months, cataloging his every move, amassing proof of his family surveillance. But the cops dismissed it. Photos of public errands weren't criminal evidence. She unearthed more documents, newspaper clips on 3 other families tied to the original trial as witnesses or jurors. The Hendersons in Michigan. Their 23-year-old daughter fell by a sudden heart attack, despite her marathon-honed health. The Washingtons in Georgia. Their son crushed in a freak workplace shelf collapse on his 23rd birthday. 2 families had already buried children. Luna suspected at least one more was in the crosshairs. I tracked down the Hendersons on social media and messaged them, introducing myself and proposing a chat. A reply pinged back in under an hour. We scheduled a video call that very afternoon. They described retaining executive protection services, stalker specialists with ex-FBI muscle. For 2 years, they'd shelled out $8,000 monthly for daily home sweeps and escorts for their surviving kids to school and jobs. The dad had refinanced their home with a second mortgage. The mom juggled 3 gigs. But they insisted it was priceless. Their other children were still breathing. That evening, Mom finally opened up to Luna and me about the trial she'd buried for 2 decades. Her roommate Jennifer had fallen for this initially suave guy, whose grip tightened into control. When Jennifer attempted to end it, he arrived at their place wielding a knife. Mom, concealed in the bedroom closet, endured the horror, Jennifer's pleas, the unspeakable noises that haunted her sleep. Police arrived to find her the sole brave witness. Others cowered from his family's reach. She endured 3 years in witness protection, shuttling between motels and safe houses, before craving normalcy under a fresh identity. Samuel phoned the next day with a potential lifeline in federal statutes. If we could demonstrate a cross-state pattern of sustained threats and harassment, it escalated to a federal offense demanding FBI involvement. He created a secure shared drive. We began dumping it all in. Eerie calls, sightings of lurkers, tales lasting over 2 blocks, crafting an irrefutable dossier. 2 days later, an email landed, subjectless, from a jumble of digits and letters. Inside, 12 shots of me snapped from beyond my apartment window across the prior month. Grocery runs, mail checks, work departures, the body text. Just 23 repeated endlessly. I forwarded it straight to Samuel. He called it solid proof, but warned of ramping aggression. We had to heighten vigilance. Luna's solo sleuthing revealed Seth Robertson had gone by Mike Junn to snag a gig at Quick Ship Delivery Service 6 months back, the outfit servicing our block daily. She'd shadowed his rounds, spotting him dawdling by our homes, snapping pics, mapping our routines. We resolved to corner him the next dawn at the warehouse as he prepped his truck. Mom waited in the car while Luna and I approached. She laid it out we knew his true identity, his game. He paused mid-box, pivoting with a serene grin as if anticipated. "Proof's elusive," he drawled, "and my boss. Eternally patient, with endless time for the perfect window." He claimed we'd stay paranoid forever, but slip-ups were inevitable, lax locks overlooked shadows, and that's when they'd close the book. Luna captured it all on video, yet he shrugged it off, hopped in, and rolled out like we'd bantered about rain. Around 2 a.m. that night, shattering glass yanked me awake. Outside, my car's window was bashed in, a photo on the seat. My sister's grave, adorned with unfamiliar fresh blooms. Scrawled on the reverse, they could strike any time, that we were merely delaying the end. Mom dialed the U.S. Marshals Service for the next 3 hours, pleading re-entry to witness protection. I hovered, hearing her tone fracture as she bounced between extensions, detailing the photo, my sister's fate. But the refrain echoed, "Voluntary exit barred, return without fresh, qualifying mortal peril." The rep clarified, "Harassment. Vague warnings, they don't suffice." They needed proof of an active threat to Caroline, my mom, not just scares. Frustrated, she smashed her phone against the wall. Samuel, our lawyer, suggested hiring Tristan Beck, a genealogy expert who tracked missing people. That afternoon, Tristan arrived with laptops and papers, spending 4 hours exposing our data on social media, public records, and broker sites. For $50, anyone could buy our addresses, phones, and relatives' names. He uncovered our info in 12 breaches, from unheard-of companies, credit monitors, grocery apps, even my gym. Then he froze. A chart linked family deaths at 23 to Mom's past events. Great-Aunt Helen was her maid of honor. A cousin helped her move. They all knew her real name, Caroline. Samuel got a restraining order against Seth Robertson, but his apartment was stripped bare, like he'd never lived there. He'd paid 6 months cash rent, vanished without a trace. At his fake delivery job, Mike Junn hadn't shown in days. 2 weeks later, my neighbor reported a woman surveying the block, probing our routines. Luna Arpai recognized her from another case, a rotating network of investigators to stay under radar. Done hiding, I posted everything online, names, photos, emails, on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit. Samuel urged me to delete it. Publicity could escalate risks. I refused. It went viral overnight, thousands of views, reporters swarming. Mom barricaded herself, fearing worse, but I believed spotlights deterred vanishings. 3 days later, a federal prosecutor called, citing unreported details. They'd built a RICO case against the man who'd targeted Mom 20 years ago in her trial, but needed more. Our story sealed it. At Samuel's office, FBI agents showed 30 years of his crimes, dozens suspected, never proven. We agreed to cooperate for federal protection, bi-daily drive-bys, weekly calls. A month in, nurse Kayla Freeman emailed. She'd cared for my sister during her fatal aneurysm at 23. Dizzy spells, a stalking car. My sister laughed it off, scared. Kayla met us at a coffee shop, glancing nervously, handing over a cooler with illicit blood vials. At Luna's discreet lab, tests revealed a rare aneurysm-triggering compound, undetectable without targeting. Not court-proof, but murder confirmed. I tested positive for the same genetic marker. Seth likely dosed her online as family, but failed on my birthday when an aggressive stranger scared him off. Luna connected us to a support group, 12 survivors of his targets. One lost a brother to a heart attack at 32, another a father in a mechanical crash. We met weekly, sharing intel. A member's forensic accountant exposed his shell companies to the IRS, costing millions. Mom crumbled under stress, so we saw a stalking specialist therapist. Safety plans, breathing exercises, code words. She slept past 2 hours nightly. Bad news. The RICO witness vanished pre-grand jury, paid or fled. Case weakened but alive. I joined self-defense classes, breaks, strikes, improvised weapons, plus pepper spray license. The group found Mom's retired witness protection handler in Florida. Off-record at a beach bar, he drilled us. Burn cards, cash only, burners weekly, no old contacts, alter appearance, move fast. We prepped docs, escape routes, new accounts under her maiden name, hidden cash. Luna called, Seth arrested in Nevada for meth, warrants in 3 states. Bail loomed, but he'd be tied up. Mom packed, I moved in. We fortified. Cameras everywhere, driveway, yard, doors, deadbolts, window locks, motion lights, $2 K alarm with panic fobs. The group pooled funds for security, legal aid, relocations, 15 families in days. Journalist Julia Richmond emailed. Her trial doc uncovered 7 pre-testimony deaths, accidents, suicides unsolved. Threats, notes, follows linked them. Samuel sued for harassment, distress. Judge advanced it on her patterns. Depositions. Mom shattered seeing him on video, his shark eyes and hello, Caroline's smile. She vomited twice but returned steely, detailing decades of fear. Mom went public via Julia's probe. 3 days scanning docs, 8 hours of her story. Her Sunday front page exposé, decades of death. Detailed victims, timelines, 15 families, quotes, docs, audio. It exploded, 3 more families surfaced. FBI seized it, 2 hidden witnesses emerged with hit recordings. That day, RICO arrest, life possible. But Luna warned, network lingered. Seth Bielade vanished, others might revenge hunt. Group hit 40 post article, we non-profiteed for funding, flyers, resources. Mom met widower Jerome at meetings. Coffees turned dinners, her first real smile since my sister. Trial delayed twice, but started. Him shackled us unflinching. I testified 3 hours on my birthday, her death. Mom the next, owning Caroline's flight. Jury, guilty all counts, life no parole. He mouthed her name, she stared back. Seth intimidated another witness, arrested, found, suicided in cell days later. Networker nabbed in Texas. Group swelled to 200, website, scholarships in my sister's name for nurses. Mom sold the house, moved with Jerome, engaged on trial's anniversary. I worked hybrid, dated briefly, but paced myself. We therapied monthly, visited her grave, planted a memorial tree, full family truth-telling, tears flowing. Life scarred, fear lingering, but we built. Organization aided 50 with orders, security, 3 more arrests. Connected by survival, Mom and I closer, laughing at Jerome's jokes. For my sister, we lived on promise kept. Thanks for listening, buddy. Feels good to unpack. Catch you soon.